So yesterday we talked about the Ascent meta and some of the changes that we might want to expect from the Ascent meta. Go and watch that video if you haven't already, because Ascent might finally be interesting. But today we're going to talk about Icebox. And weirdly enough, Ascent is normally the map that you associate with not changing whatsoever, but it actually might be more so that Icebox changes less than Ascent in this time around. And we'll get into some of the details as to why that is. So we're going to do what we did yesterday by showing the agents that I expect to play in each class. So let's start with the controller class, and you can see there's just one agent, and that's Viper. And yeah, this is pretty much what I expect to be the case, right? Obviously, Viper getting a high pick rate on Icebox, I'm not breaking any news to you right there. But I do think, you might be like, oh, well, where are some of the other agents, right? Won't we see any double control or anything like that? And that's the thing, because last year, in 2024, Harbor's pick rate on Icebox overall was about 28%, right? So there was, a fairly significant portion of double controller. And there were even, some Brimstones, some Astras, some Omens, fluttered in there as well every so often. But this year, with where we are right now in the meta, I'm not as certain that that will be the case. Just because I feel like there's a lot of other good stuff to play in the other classes, right? I feel like the Sentinel class has got quite a bit better. The Initiator class has potentially got a bit better as well. And so I just feel like you'll probably feel like, oh, this is probably a bit better than playing double controller, right? And obviously with where people feel like Harbor is right now, I don't think we'll see a ton of Harbor. It's possible we get a little bit of Harbor, but I wouldn't really be expecting anything near what he got last year on Icebox. So it's not that double controller is bad on this map, but I just think that most teams will probably think, something else is a bit stronger. Obviously, Viper's pick rate will still be around 100%. But yeah, I'm not expecting a ton of double controller. Let's skip ahead now to actually the Duelist class. And this is what I've got for the Duelist class. I've got for, obviously, a fairly hefty chunk of Jet. And also maybe a small bit of Yoru as well, right? This, again, is going pretty much what we said for Ascent as well, right? That there are just some teams that like Yoru and are playing Yoru pretty much every map, so why wouldn't they also, just continue that theme and play Yoru on Icebox as well? Because they're playing Yoru on maps that Yoru hadn't really ever seen much play on before, so why not just add Icebox into that mix, right? Obviously, some teams will probably stick with Jet, but I don't have either of these agents being that big here on this slide, because I think that no-duelist will be a very, very popular pick. Because Icebox is a map where we've seen in the past, you don't necessarily need a duelist on this map. You can go without on this map, and it certainly helps perhaps in some of your defensive side, depending what agents you pick. But even on the attack side, you can make it work, and teams have made it work. And it can make your post plant significantly stronger as well. And so it wouldn't shock me if that was the case for quite a few teams. Now, again, there will still be some that, of course, still want to play Jet, and some that perhaps want to, try the Yoru on Icebox as well. Wouldn't shock me if that was the case, but I do think that no duelist is probably going to make up a fairly significant portion of the meta as well. Okay, moving on to the Sentinel class, and this is maybe where it gets a little bit more interesting, because there are a few more options that are probably worth considering here on Icebox, and also I think a bit more uncertainty as to where we might go. Because here's the thing, this is what I've got the Sentinel class as right now, is Killjoy being the main part of the meta, still probably seeing a decent portion of Vice, just because Vice is very good, and then obviously still seeing some Sage, and maybe even a bit of Deadlock as well, right? Honestly, you could even add Chamber to this as well. Right, you actually could add Chamber, and I probably should have done to this here as well. So let me talk about why I've gone for this. Let's start with Killjoy, because Killjoy, of course, has been the de facto choice here on Icebox, pretty much forever, essentially, right? Like, Killjoy has always been very good on Icebox. It's always been a Killjoy rather than a Cypher map. And now that, the tail missiles don't destroy Killjoy lockdown, and the fact that Killjoy's always been good on this map, I still think you will want Killjoy, right? I think that this is one of those maps where I'm not sure that teams will be as ready to say we're gonna ditch a Killjoy for the Vice, because I do think that you want kind of that extra information, right? I do think that you'll want like Alarm Bot plus a Killjoy turret for that extra information, particularly, normally towards mid. I do think that teams will still want to prioritize that. And again, if we're not playing a duelist, like some teams probably aren't, if you want to play Vice as well, because you just think Vice is very good, well, you probably can just play both of them, right? You can probably just play Killjoy and Vice, and then, for instance, on attack side, you have the Killjoy stuff watching your flank, so you can just use the wall as a post plant tool, which is a very good post plant tool, right? And that's probably how you will play it out, which is perfectly reasonable and perfectly fine. Now, interestingly enough, again, if you play no duelist, obviously Vice can probably be a bit of a pain about that, right? Like, if teams aren't going to be playing Omen and they're going to be playing no-duelist quite a lot, you think about the Vice Thorns going up, well, that's going to delay you for a very long time. Same thing with the wall, right? If you don't got no Omen, no Duelist, it might just be one person, you know, trapped on the other side of the wall, literally on their own with no help coming anytime soon. And, you know, they're in a lot of trouble. So against the kind of comps that will probably be pretty popular on Icebox, Vice will probably find quite a bit of value, even though, like, just in, you know, a vacuum, I'm not sure it is the best Vice map, but, you know, against some of the things that you're likely to play against, Vice is going to be good, and Vice is just pretty good anyway, so you probably will get quite a bit of Vice. Then we have Sage, right? And Sage obviously has historically been a pretty popular pick on Icebox. I'm not breaking news with that. We did see some Sage last year, but certainly lower than it ever had been before. And I think that that will probably continue, right? There will probably, most teams will probably think there are better ways of kind of getting around the map than using Sage. Still probably will see some Sage and people still going into that, but I don't think it will be a main way of playing. Weirdly enough, we could actually get some Sage Deadlock, and let's talk about Deadlock. That would be fun. I would really enjoy it if a team decided, let's go all in and let's play Sage Deadlock and, you know, really just lock down an area for a long time, right? And just you're not coming in. That would be fun, and maybe someone will try it, and I hope that they do. But again, Deadlock is an interesting one here in terms of, you know, it's difficult for me right now without having seen, you know, the strength of the new Deadlock and how much teams will really lean into it. It's difficult to know how much Deadlock will get. It's possible Deadlock could be like one of the most popular agents on this map, potentially. I do think that one of the problems going against Deadlock is that this isn't a map where you're likely to see, you know, a ton of like rays, right? So you're kind of missing that combo with the Gravnet just there. Probably won't see as much Teo as, you know, some other maps, right? Like, for instance, on Bind, right? Like, if you were to have the new Deadlock on Bind, I'm sure it would be extremely popular because you're playing Raze and Teo. There's a lot of combos you can do, and it would be crazy, right? Here, not so much. You know, you don't have those kind of Breach Teo combos probably as much on Icebox as you do on other maps, so it might not quite be as strong. But still, it's going to be pretty good, right? The Gravnet is still going to be good. The wall here might find you quite a bit of value as well. So, yeah, I still think Deadlock is a fairly viable choice. And then finally, let's finish up with the Initiators. And this is what I've got for the Initiators, who will be, I think, pretty popular, right? You're going to see a lot of double Initiator. You might even see triple Initiator, right? Sova I've got as the most popular just because most teams will play Sova. In whatever combo that is, I think most teams will play Sova here on Icebox, right? We saw last year that Gecko really replaced Sage as the kind of main way of getting a safe plant down, right? In terms of, you know, having Wingman kind of be the way that you get a safe plant down. Combined sometimes with a KO as well. We did see Gecko Sova, we saw Gecko KO, we saw Sova KO, right? We saw all three of those combos played pretty evenly, to be honest, between the three of them. But yeah, whether it's, you know, Gecko, Wingman Plant, and KO Knife to try and suppress so that they can't destroy it with util, those kind of things I think are all possible. Obviously now though, and here's the fourth person on this slide here, is Teo, right? Again, who could mix it up, and again, you're talking about like ways of stopping Wingman. Teo won't be as easy as to suppress as maybe other agents would be, right? Because he can be quite far away and still potentially kill a Wingman plant. So Teo as well, you know, I mean, Teo's just good. I'm not breaking news there. Like, yeah, obviously Teo will probably see some amount of play because Teo is very good. It's difficult to know how much because, again, Icebox maybe isn't like the most obvious Teo map. It doesn't strike me as like, you know, an essential Teo map, but I'm sure, you know, quite a few teams will try it because Teo's just very good, so that wouldn't shock me in the slightest. But yeah, again, we've got some quite interesting things. And again, there are a lot of different interesting comps that you could play, right? Like, we could see triple Initiator. Wouldn't surprise, maybe someone would forego Sova and say, I'm going to play Gecko, KO, and Teo, right? All the O's, essentially. We're just going to put them in one comp, play it with Viper and, you know, Killjoy, and that's our comp. Like, comps like that, I really could see, you know, doing pretty well as well. Wouldn't shock me, right? Just foregoing a duelist, triple Initiator, wow, crazy. It feels crazy, but actually probably could work pretty well. And again, so there probably is quite a few interesting different comp strategies, right? Maybe not so much in terms of the varied agent pool. I don't think we'll see that varied of an agent pool on Icebox, but we could see quite a few variants in terms of we're playing triple Initiator, we're playing double Sentinel, we're sticking with kind of, you know, a normal duelist smoke Sentinel to Initiator comp, right? We might actually get quite a bit of variance in terms of the different archetypes on Icebox, but maybe not as much in terms of like the width of agents that are played, but that could lead to some pretty interesting games.